It's so pretty outside. I'm jumping to reading just so I can be outside, and Biscuit's over here laying by my feet. I can hear the birds and feel the wind blowing. Let's read about a mouse. All right. So we ended with Roscaro, who had gone into the banquet hall, tail in hand, marching and dancing to the music. What in the world's going to happen? Chapter 20. A view from a chandelier. There was in the banquet hall a most beautiful and ornate chandelier. Chandelier is like the big light that comes down. It sometimes has crystals and it's just pretty. A lot of times if you go into your entryway, you have a chandelier lighting. Okay, so that's what it is, like a fancy light. Okay. The crystals that hung from it caught the light of the candles on the table and the light from the face of the laughing princess. They danced to the rhythm of the minstrel's music, swaying back and forth, twinkling and beckoning. What better place to view all this glory, all this beautiful beauty? That rat is really thinking, yeah, that's what, okay, let's just see. There was so much laughing and singing and juggling that no one noticed as Roscuro crawled up a table leg and onto the table, and from there flung himself onto the lowest branch of the chandelier. No one saw him? Okay. Hanging by one paw, he swung back and forth, admiring the spectacle below him. The smells of the food, the sound of the music, and the light. The light. The light was amazing, unbelievable. Roscuro smiled and shook his head. Unfortunately, a rat can hang from a chandelier for only so long before he is discovered. This would be true at even the loudest of parties. Reader, do you know who it was that spotted him? Oh, you're right. Who spotted Despereaux? That sharp-eyed Princess P. A rat! She shouted. A rat is hanging from the chandelier, look! The party, as I have noted, was loud. The minstrels were strumming and singing. The people were laughing and eating. The man with the jingle cap was juggling and jingling. No one in the midst of all of that merriment even heard the Princess P. No one except for Roscuro. Rat? He had never before been aware of what an ugly word rat was. Rat. In the middle of all the beauty, it immediately came clear that it was an extremely distasteful syllable. Rat. A curse. An insult. A word totally without light. And not until he heard it from the mouth of the princess did Roscuro realize that he did not like being a rat, that he did not want to be a rat. This revelation hit Roscuro with such force that it made him lose his grip on the chandelier. The rat reader fell. And alas, he fell right directly into the queen's bowl of soup. Oh, snap. The queen loved soup. She loved soup more than anything in the world except for Princess P and the king. And because the queen loved it, soup was served in the castle for every banquet, every lunch, and every dinner. And what soup was it? Cook's love and admiration for the queen and her palate moved the broth that she concocted from the level of mere food to a high art. On this particular day, for this particular banquet, Cook had outdone herself. The soup was a masterwork, a delicate mingling of chicken, watercress, and garlic. Roscuro, as he surfaced bloop, 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 from the bottom of the queen's capacious bowl, could not help taking a few appreciative sips. Lovely, he said, distracted for a moment for the misery of his existence. Delightful. See? shouted the pea. See? She stood and she pointed her finger right at Roscuro. It is a rat. I told you it is a rat. He was hanging from the chandelier, and now he's in Mama's soup. The musicians stopped playing their guitars. The jugglers stopped juggling. The noble people stopped eating. The queen looked at Roscuro. Roscuro looked at the queen. Reader, in spite of honesty, I must utter a difficult and unsavory truth. Rats are not beautiful creatures. They are not even cute. They are really rather nasty beasts, particularly if one happens to appear in the bowl of soup of which pieces of watercress clinging to his whiskers. There was a long moment of silence, and then Roscuro said to the queen, I beg your pardon. In response, the queen flung her spoon in the air and made an incredible noise, a noise that was in no way worthy of a king, a noise somewhere between the neigh of a horse and a squeal of a pig, a noise that sounded something like, ah! And then she said, there's a rat in my soup. The queen was really a simple soul, and always full her whole life. She had done nothing except state the overly obvious. She died as she lived. There's a rat in my soup were the last words that she uttered. She clutched her chest and fell over backwards. Her royal chair hit the floor with a thump, and the banquet hall exploded. Spoons were dropped. Chairs were flung back. Save her, thundered the king. You must save her. All the king's men ran to try and to rescue the queen. Roscuro climbed out of the bowl of soup. He felt that, under the circumstances, it would be best if he left. You think? As he crawled across the tablecloth, he remembered the words of the prisoner in the dungeon. His regrets that he did not look back at his daughter as he left her. And so Roscuro turned. He looked back. What do you think he saw? And he saw that the princess was glaring at him. Her eyes were filled with disgust and anger. Go back to the dungeon was the look that she gave him. Go back to the darkness where you belong. This look, reader, broke Roscuro's heart. Did you think that rats do not have hearts? Wrong. All living things have a heart, and the heart of any living thing can be broken. If the rat had not looked over his shoulder, perhaps his heart would not have been broken. And it is possible then that I would not have a story to tell you. But, oh reader, he did look. Wow. He invites himself to a party, and the princess dies. Are you kidding me? Talk about some party crashing there, right? So there's one word I want us to look at real quick. Infer. If you're going to make an inference or inferring of something, you are going to draw a conclusion by using reasoning, by things that you know or you can see or prove. In this case, you're going to infer about Roscuro, and you're going to use evidence or proof from the book itself. So it says, it says chapters 20 and 21, looks like this, and Roscuro's holding a spoon in his hand, a little rotten rat. Inferring with text. What can you infer that Roscuro is feeling after the queen dies? What evidence from the text supports this? Do you think he meant to kill the queen? Yeah, I don't think he meant to. I think it was an accident. I think him not knowing his place as a rat in the kingdom versus, an honored guest at the banquet hall led to that. But how do you infer, what is it that you infer of how Roscuro is feeling that the queen died? So let's go back real quick and I'll help you with this. 21. First off, we know that he was struggling with being a rat, and he did not like the way the word rat it sounded, right? I'm looking at page 112. Roscoe climbed out of the bowl of soup. He felt that under the circumstances, it would be best if he left. As he crawled across the tablecloth, he remembered the words of the prisoner that he didn't even look back. So he's feeling guilty, one, that he ruined the party. He's feeling embarrassed because he's been called out as a rat. Now he's kind of like tucking his tail and walking off. Right at that time, she hadn't died quite yet, but when he looked back, he realized she was dead, and who was staring at him? And he saw the princess was glaring at him. Her eyes were filled with disgust and anger, and his heart was broken. I think at that point, all Roscoe was looking for was the light. You know, hanging from a chandelier, dropping into the queen's soup, causing her to have a heart attack and she dies. He realizes now the princess doesn't have a mama anymore. He realizes what an absolute fiasco he had caused, and he wanted to look back so he wouldn't regret, but he did regret. He regretted his actions, and you can tell by what I just read, okay? So pick one or two things there, and kind of feel sorry for Roscoe. Yeah, me too. All right. Use page numbers and quotations because you're going to exactly quote what it is. His heart was broken when he heard the words disgust, right? Okay, good job.